Hello and welcome to the Three Blind Mice podcast. As you can tell, this is our neighborhood. It's our very special show of stories from our past, of 117 years combined experience. And as always, I'm joined by Don and Jim, are my co-authors of the Officials Tales book, now available on Amazon Kindle and Amazon Books. Stay tuned later on in the show for a special announcement on our book launch. And also remember, as always, to push the like and subscribe buttons, as well as the alert button to get reminders of when we post our next video. Thanks again for joining us. Don, Jim, how you guys doing today?
Had the coffee and the donut.
Right here.
As always, baby. Hey, we
Yeah,
got the old, gotta represent here,
I got to find that cup.
Yeah. So tonight, folks, we're going to be talking about stories that didn't make the book. So a little bit of insight, a little bit of our brotherhood and people we've lost. And just to tell you another side of officiating and about us. So Don, we're going to let you start off with a storytelling and see where this goes.
All right. Well, we're going to start this story back in 1996 when three of us, along with a couple other Norwalk guys, went to Bowling Green State University for a three-man officiating clinic that was combined with their high school boys basketball camps. And we had a great time that first year. Jim Larinaga was the head coach. He had a social hour on Friday night over at Frickers that included all the coaches involved and all the officials were invited. It was really a great time. And Coach Larinaga, his personality was on display there. Great guy. Later took George Mason to the Final Four, and also did that with University of Florida this year a couple years ago. We returned again in 97. And in fact, I was asked to be a clinician by Joe Horvath, who ran that three-man clinic. And it was our last time at Bowling Green because their new coach, Dan Dockich, was pretty tough for Joe to work with as far as the officials for it. So we moved to University of Toledo. That also meant the date of their clinic or their camp turned out to be the same weekend as our Friday, Saturday three-man clinic that we had developed and held in Norwalk. So with that, I got a call from Joe on Friday night, and he had told me that they were kind of shorthanded and wondered if any of our guys would be open to coming up and working a couple of games up there on Sunday morning so that the people that they had in there to work the games would have, a few more hours to rest their legs because they got pretty beat up on Friday, and he expected the same thing to happen on Saturday. So we loaded up. I loaded up the van. Jimmy and Rick were aboard. The late Al Chorniak from Vermilion, a great friend. He came along with his old work buddy, Nate Smith from Lorraine. And we also had the late Tommy Ross with us. And so the six of us went up on Father's Day, 1998 to University of Toledo. So now the stage is set. We were split up. Jim and Tommy stayed at Centennial Hall. They had, of course, all the bleachers and seats pushed back and had a couple courts there. Al and I went over along with Rick and Nate went over to an annex building, and it was warm in there, and we had a couple games to do. And so we just kept in mind that we were helping out the guys that were really beat up from running. When we came back, when our games were done there, we walked back down the hill to Centennial and in the lower door right on the concourse where the floor was. And as we walked in and we were scanning over things, I saw Jimmy and Tom were on the main floor, the game floor that they use at Toledo. And they had the scores table somewhat set up, like the college would have it for a game. And so I immediately had an idea, and I went running around behind the scorers table behind the basket because I had seen they were setting up to shoot a couple of free throws. Well, I got down there, and under the basket and folding chairs were probably the majority of those young officials that were learning 3-man. And so I looked at them and kind of shushed them, and I said, like, watch this. Jim's under the basket, waiting, about to have the free throw, and I snuck behind him, both hands on the side. I pulled his black officiating shorts down below his knees, and I thought, here's a great chance for a prank. So we did it. Now I know we all wore, like compression shorts under our shorts all the time, and so I knew that there was the instantaneous embarrassment, was kind of settled out by the fact that, hey, I got these things on. Shoot, no big deal. But everybody got a kick out of it, and I got a kick out of it, and Jimmy couldn't do much but pull him up and keep on officiating, which he did. So a great prank there, but yet there was another prank attached to that one. I'll let Jimmy tell you the second part of that.
Yes, as Don said, embarrassment, but I did the thing. I kept doing my job. But the place that I work, which Rick helped me land, was called Breckenridge, is where we send out the soaps and shampoos to all the hotels and motels in the area and in other places, out of state. But for some odd reason, when some of these cases of soap come back, and instead of having them throw them in the trash, I would always load a couple bags up and take them to the games. And this weekend, I happened to come across some shampoo to go with the soap. So I get back in, and all of a sudden, I had put the box out there. The guys tell them to help themselves, and all of a sudden, I'm looking around. I can't see Don, and I turned, I walked over to the shower, and I go, oh, he's in there. He's in there. I'm gonna get him. I have to move quick because there's not that much shampoo to rinse out of that hair of his. So I reached in there and turned that from one side to the other, and then stepped back to wait for the cold to come hitting him. And next thing you know, you could hear this yell, ah, it's cold, and the laughter again come throughout the locker room and stuff. And it was like this, over the years and stuff, I would always take that, and I'd make sure that Rick and Don and any of the guys that I had worked with, always had soap and shampoo and stuff like that, and probably saving a couple $100 easy.
Well, I will tell you this, even though we prank each other and, we're brothers basically in stripes, and we call ourselves a brotherhood, it leans into like the summer stuff that we actually do. Feels about it all the time. You don't get better during the season, you get better during the summer. Don and I both work football and basketball. So with the summer stuff that we had, we only had a couple of months off a year, so it made it a little tough. So now leading into the summer camps, one like Don mentioned, I believe we had the BAOA camp, which Don ran for about 18 years, 19, something like that, which we got all kinds of paraphernalia from. You've seen us wear on the show, shirts, watches, all kinds of stuff for helping out. But we also did Summer League, okay? And in the early days, we didn't have the air-conditioned gyms that we have today. We were working at a middle school here locally in Norwalk, and this goes into my story of a summer camp. It was after work. It was one of those hot summer days in late June, early July. I'd gotten there just in a nick of time from my job, threw my shorts on, my shirt on, and I'm working with a local official called Tim Cole. You'll know from the book, and he's a joker himself. And we're working side courts, 2 side courts at the middle school. So we got 2 games going simultaneous. And this is an old middle school, so it's built with bleachers on one side and a stage on the other side. So it's multi-purpose. We're working the game. We get started. Again, all full day of work, all the pressures at work. And we're getting there late and running. So we get started in the game. We're running up and down the floor, doing our calls. And one of the mothers and fathers of one of the local teams was sitting on the stage. And every time I got near him, he had something else to say about Denny and my competence as officials, or lack thereof. And we'd run up and down a few times, and we had a fast break at my end. He said something. I turned around, and this is summertime. Professionalism is now off the table. I took my shirt off, which included my whistle. I threw it to him, landed in his lap. I sat down next to him and said, "If you can do it better, go ahead." Now, remember, the game is still going on. And Denny Foles is at the other end, and he's looking up to find me. And he's like, "Where the heck is Rick at? Where the heck is Rick at?" And he looks at me on the stage with my shirt off. I got my undershirt on, of course. And he's looking, throws his hands in the air, and he's like, "What's going on?" And no sooner did he do that the wife turned to the dad that had been berating us the entire game, the beginning of the game. And she says, "Give him his shirt back and apologize right now." So just to let you know, fans and parents, two quick notes. Most of your children are not going to play professional sports. I think in all of our experience, we've probably had 10 guys that we've ref football and basketball that have made it to the professional level. It just doesn't happen. So that's, enjoy the game, enjoy your children, cheer them on all you want. But those guys that are giving their time for little or no money after a hard day of work is probably not the guys you want to berate in a summer league. So that's my summer league story. I guess, Don, it's up. You're up again now. What do you got?
Well, I just want to add one thing. You talked about how few people make it to the pros, or even major college. On consecutive weekends, back in, oh gosh, this had to be in the mid 90s, football playoffs in Ohio. Back-to-back weekends, I had two guys that are big-time coaches. Now, one name, Ohio State defensive lineman that coached at Tennessee most recently.
Vrabel. Mike Vrabel.
Mike Vrabel, right.
Vrabel.
Played for, I'm going off top of my head now. He played for Walsh Jesuit.
Yes.
So I had them in a game over at Barberton, and the next weekend we go down to Gahanna High School, and Luke Fickle,
yes,
obviously who was coached through was the interim coach Ohio State after the dismissal of Jim Tressel, and then went to Cincinnati and is now in Wisconsin. So in back-to-back weeks now. Obviously didn't know who these guys were at the time. But, looking back at that, pretty amazing. And also just even before that in the early 90s, Woodson,
yes.
Charles Woodson, Heisman winner, longtime professional, all pro player from Michigan. He played at Fremont Ross, and we had him his sophomore year. It didn't take us long to find out that this kid was something special. Didn't know his name. We knew it after the game, but you never know. You never know who's on that court or on that field.
Like I said, I can go through some of the guys that we've seen, Don. I mean, Kaiser, Fry, Orlando Pace.
Oh, my.
Micah Hyde. I can go, through these guys. I mean, we've been very blessed in our, 117 years together that we've seen some of these guys and worked with some of these guys. And, again, they're the anomaly. Okay, let's get that straight here. They're the anomaly.
There was also a couple other gentlemen in the early 80s. I think they used to call him the Big O, Mr. Orlando Pace.
Yeah.
and
That's
he
what it
ended
is.
up going to Ohio State and into the pros. And I'm trying to think. The year escapes me, but I had went to Findlay High School where another guy, I believe his name was Ben Roethlisberger, who
There's
ended up
another
playing
one.
with the
Yeah.
Steelers.
Mhm.
Yep.
I was talking to a couple of the guys at the scorers table that night, and I was asking them, was that the quarterback? And they go, yeah. So you just wonder what would have happened if he would have played more his junior and sophomore year. And I said, well, why didn't he? And they said, well, from what that gentleman told me, he says the coach's son was quarterback.
That's right. He
Well,
So
was.
I said, yeah, could only imagine what happened there. And then I'm trying to think one other guy he played at uh, Liberty Benton. He played point guard for the Buckeyes.
Aaron
Right.
Kraft.
Help,
Right. Kraft.
help me
Aaron
out.
Kraft.
Aaron
Uh,
Kraft.
Yep, Aaron
Aaron
Kraft.
Kraft.
Yep,
When
You
yep,
had him
know,
in football when he was sophomore quarterback,
yeah.
and
oh,
he did a lot of running for him. I saw on he ran a sweep, and he had such wheels. He probably went 70 yards, and he just flew by any defender going over to that
Right,
side.
right.
Pretty impressive kid. We've seen a lot of good ones. I mean, at
yes.
the
Like I
time,
said.
you see how good they are,
Mhm.
but you don't know their name, and then afterwards you find out. I say, oh
Well,
yeah,
just like with Diebler, the three Diebler boys that played
Yep.
for their dad. I mean, when
Mhm.
when Don and I had they had played at Gibsonburg, I
Mhm.
believe was the first place we saw
Jeremiah played at
one of the
Gibson.
brother. Yeah, and then later when they moved to Fostoria, uh, the next brother come up and he ended
Right.
up playing for the Buckeyes, and now the last one played at Upper Sandusky,
Well,
and
they both won a state championship there.
right, right,
Jake's senior year, John's sophomore year,
Right.
yeah,
they did, and Jake went to Valparaiso, is where he went to
yeah,
college.
Right.
And
right,
but boy, after that and popping around a little bit, he spent a lot of time at Ohio State before he got that
yeah,
head
Sure.
job.
yeah.
Yeah, I was on
Yeah.
the floor with those two guys in a tournament game. We had them in Ashland at Madison. I was
Mm-hmm.
with the late great John Gurney
Mm-hmm.
and Dr. Pat Havens, if you guys remember
Mm-hmm.
Doc.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we worked that game together, and boy, oh boy, that was something to see. But again, that's the anomaly. I think that's what I want to get across to our audience is, enjoy these kids while they're playing the game. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a game. It's not supposed to be the end of the world. So, if you want to keep having sports officials and heck, coaches, are getting fed up with it. Maybe you want to rethink, you know, your approach. So, anyway, let's get on to the second story, and probably the final story here for all of us. So, Don, why don't you go ahead and get us started off here, and we'll go from there.
Okay, this is a rather strange one, and this is back when I was spending a little more time in the Cleveland area rather than out our way, just to learn three man and actually get some court experience. But in 1994-95 season, I had Cleveland Heights. I was assigned to three of their games, two of them in the conference that they were playing in Cleveland, and one that they came out to Lorraine Admiral King and played out there. And I mean, Springer was undoubtedly a phenomenal uh, guard for them. And this game, even though I had seen him at Parma and at Admiral King, the game that I'm going to talk about happened at East Cleveland Shaw. Now, I didn't know much of the backstory here, but it was a sloppy, rainy, not rainy, a sloppy, snowy, heavy snow night, and the roads up around Cleveland were not good. And because of that, all three of us were later than usual getting to the game site. And Shaw High School is not what those of us in north central Ohio look at as a normal high school. It's like a college campus because they're a comprehensive high school. They have all kinds of occupational directions to go. It's like EHOVI, which we would know, on steroids, big time steroids. So we got in there, and we never even went out into the crowd to watch the JV game because it was around halftime when we got there, and well into the third quarter when the third person arrived. And so we had a chance to have a very quick but serious pregame conference. And when it was time, we go out onto the floor, and the music was just no band, DJ, and he had the bass pumped up, and the whole place was going, and their gym held close to 3,000 people, and it was all on two sides. Nobody in the end, nobody seated on the ends, but a lot of space from the sidelines to the first row of bleachers. And so all we know is that the year before, these teams played 3 times. During the regular season, each team won once, and they played in the regional final for a chance to go to the Final Four. And one team won by a couple points. Who it was, I don't remember what they told me. It didn't make any difference. We knew we were going to have a phenomenal basketball game. And it was. They didn't let us down. When we walked out and looked around, there weren't any empty spaces in the stands. Everybody was up and swaying to the music. And I looked around, and lots of cops there. I mean, I was amazed. But again, this is my first time into going into that part of Cleveland. So I just figured, well, they knew what they were doing. They hired a lot because they got a lot. I got a full house here. So by the time the game started, I saw that 3 of the 4 channels in Cleveland that had evening news, 11 o'clock news, had cameras there. And that just let me know even more it was a big game. When they started playing, it was phenomenal. The athleticism, off the charts, I want to tell you. If somebody get a dunk at one end, the other team come get a dunk at the other end. And they were just phenomenal. The passing, this was a Division II college game. I think Heights might have had the better basketball athletes, but Shaw had a lot of great athletes that were football players, and it was a great ball game. We get in, I think it was late in the third quarter, we're shooting a free throw, and so we're down at the end. All I can tell you is at the end where our locker room was off the corner of the floor. And so in this situation, we're getting ready for the free throw, and I was the official that was back near the scorer's table, kind of watching everything, where the guys up close had their own views of things closer to them. What I did notice was that the policemen at the end of the court where they were shooting, that I had a good vision of, they all vacated one side. And I wondered, what's going on? So I'm watching, they shoot one free throw, and all of a sudden the people in the first few rows of the bleachers down there started to come on towards the floor, looking over their shoulders. And I look up at the other end of the court, about 3/4 of the way up in the middle of a section. There's 2 people fighting. And all of a sudden, now you drop a pebble into a body of water, and you see the rings start working outwards. That's what happened up there.
Mhm.
It just all got crazy. People were coming down out of the stands where we were shooting because they needed to see what was going on. And like in a heartbeat, we just said, get everybody off. So the teams went to their locker room. We went to our locker room, and the place out there was a mess because of this fight that started way up in that section. And so while we were in there was a gentleman that was like the PA announcer, but more like a host. He kind of a roving guy with a microphone. And he started telling all the people to leave. Well, they did that, and we could look out a window up there, and we saw that there were a few fights, nothing outrageous, but just stuff going on out in the parking area and the commons area between that building and the other building.
Mhm.
So we just hunkered down in there, and this guy kept telling people to leave. And we talked amongst ourselves. He said, we're going to have to talk to the coaches and see what they want to do about this, about finishing this game. Said, there's options to do it with nobody in the building. option to have their cheerleaders here, but there's no way you can start pick and choosing what
Right.
general public can see this thing. It's going to have to be the people that came on the bus with you and nobody else. So once they got everybody out of there and things, enough police came to kind of just move everybody out of the area near the building, we talked to the coaches to see what they wanted to do. And you could tell that the whole situation had upset them. They just decided, I don't think we want to go back at it. This is not a good time to do it. And they both agreed. There was no argument, no discussion. They both agreed that they really didn't want to do that. It was a shame it had to end that way and stuff. So, that was a decision we could live with because that's what they wanted to do.
Right.
Afterthoughts and what we found afterwards, what I found out afterwards, some of the backstory I talked about. This game had been played for the previous 10 years on a Saturday afternoon. This was the first time they played it, and it was a Friday night. First time they tried playing it again at night, and they did it on Saturday afternoon because there was a history of trouble shenanigans going on that they wanted to do it in the daylight. So here's the first shot at it, and it's a failure. And it had nothing to do with the players, had nothing to do with the coaches. That was a great game, well coached, really well played, but this was the end of it. So it goes to the OHSAA as a no contest, is what they decided to do. We were getting close to tournament time, and they didn't want to reschedule the play, whatever it was, 7 minutes, 11 minutes, whatever it was in the second half. And an investigation by local police. A couple weeks later, they gave their report, and by looking at all available videos from the schools and anybody else that had something to submit, the people that started the fight had nothing to do with either school. It was just troublemakers that waited, went in there and calmly waited for a time to make a spectacle. And, of all things, I mean, it's all completely out of our control, but I tell you what, it was such a bummer knowing that a game that good and the fans that were there enjoying it immensely didn't get a chance to see the finish they deserved.
Mm-hmm. Well, like you said before, the game that never ended. And it's a shame, and it goes right back to what we talked about, the fans. All right, Jimmy, you got one last story before we close?
Well, seeing that Don took up a majority of this, I kept looking at the clock. I thought, if you get off now, I can do this story. But that's okay. We'll get other things in here. But it's like we said. Back when Don and I started. Well, when I started, and then Don come along a couple years later. You would have some of these guys or some coaches come to our local meeting looking for somebody to do their scrimmages and stuff. Back then, we weren't getting paid. It was like, okay, maybe you do a couple games, maybe we'll get you an independent game. And that's like a lot of how it was. Nothing. Compared to now, where you're getting $35, $40 to do a scrimmage, and you were getting your to be noticed, and just the fact that you had to do it for nothing, had to travel. Wouldn't be bad if we were doing something, up at St. Paul or Norwalk, or schools like Monroeville, Edison, and stuff like that, where we only had to travel like about 15, 20 minutes. But when you're getting in the car and traveling 30 miles to do a scrimmage, that's a little bit different. But again, that's when they decided to start paying for it. So we'll get into some more stories next time. But,
we're going to have more.
That's about all I got.
The problem with getting officials for scrimmages got bad when the OHSAA lifted the restriction on how many scrimmages they could have before the season started. They maybe used to get 3 scrimmages, and then all of a sudden they could do 7 or 8. I don't think there was a limit. It was just that, you don't want to scrimmage every day because you don't have a chance to work on your deficiencies that you see in scrimmage. But, there were so many that the guy said, hey, I don't mind working 3-4 times just to get myself in shape here. But when you're asked to go, like you say, 30-35 miles to do a scrimmage, it's nice to have a little compensation, put gas in the car. And, they don't understand that, that we're not up for working every night. We have families too, just like they do, but they don't see the other side of what we do.
That's right. Well, now that you've all stayed with us for this elongated story session, we're going to give you a little reward. We are now announcing that the official Tales book is available on Amazon and Amazon Kindle, and for a short time only, by clicking this QR code, you will get it for the one-time price of $16.49. This will be available probably for the next couple of weeks. And if you direct message us or text us, if you know us personally, Don is coming up in the next week, and we will be signing some personal books, and they will be available to the people in the area. Do you guys have anything to add about the book launch? You excited?
I'm ready to go. We've spent so much time on this project
Yes.
that it was such a relief when we finally got it up on Kindle. And I will tell people that use this link here, the QR code. There are 3 ways you can buy the book. You can get it on Kindle. That's an ebook from Amazon. So what you may want to do is best way to find it is to go to the Amazon website, and then you can put in there Officials Tales book or Officials Tales ebook if you want it on your Kindle. Sometimes you won't always get the Kindle link, and it's $4.99 or $5.99 on Kindle. And if you don't have an Amazon Kindle to look at and read, there are apps to get. I think they're free for both Apple equipment and Windows operating systems that you can read a book. Kindle app. So that's another way to go. And if there's also a special club on Amazon where it's like a library. You can get it for free on that. And that's a different thing. I think you have it for a month and then it goes away. But you belong to that club where you pay a fee, and then you can pick a couple books, put them on your Kindle reader, and just like the library, when you're done, it either goes away, or if you're done, it goes away for so many days. Don't know the entire thing, but there's a couple of ways. And if you see it for nothing, that's what they're talking about, that special Kindle Unlimited.
Jimmy?
I don't know where I could say. We do have a signed hard book copy of our book here that recently I had talked to the people up at St. Paul High School here in town, and they're going to have their spring fling on the 18th. And us 3 guys will sign a book and then put it up there so they can raise some money for the church. Hopefully, if some of the people that know us take in the spring fling, they'll take a look over at that, and we can see what we can do. Hopefully, we'll raise a little bit of money for the church, and and if you're there too, you might want to look and see. I've donated 2 gallons of meatless sauce and 2 gallons of meat sauce, and this year I've thrown in a couple of dozen meatballs to go with it.
Yeah,
so
baby.
You get 4. There you go. You're set.
There you go.
And you may, if you see Jimmy that night at the spring fling, you may want to talk to him. Get one of those $15 autographed paperback books. If you don't, if you don't win the betting or the auction or the silent auction, whatever they're doing with colored hardcover book. You talk to Jimmy. He probably like a good salesman. He may have some in this trunk.
He might.
$15. That includes everything.
So I'm going to have one final story tonight, gentlemen.
Hey, go for it.
It's basically about the Brotherhood, and this is going to be a little somber. But just so we know and let everybody know that we are people too, and we are very attached to the people we officiate with, and we truly are a brotherhood. This started a few years back. I had a girls' game, one of the final girls' games before the tournament at Milan Edison with a close friend of all three of us, Dave Zaboriak. And we worked the game. It was a pretty spirited game. Dave had a few parting messages for the home coach as we went into the locker room, as Dave would always have. And he was such a great guy. And we had just worked it. And I think it was a few weeks later, I get a call from Jimmy here and letting me know that Dave had passed. And some of the people we've talked about today are also no longer with us. So what I'd like to do today, gentlemen, is raise our glasses to the guys that have were brothers that bled tears with us that are no longer with us. Thank you, man.
Amen.
So,
Well said, Rick.
gentlemen, I think that closes today's show. Sorry about it, a Debbie Downer kind of a message, but I want to let people know that, you know, we do have jobs, we do have families. If you read our book, you'll find that out. You will know that we are truly human out there. Maybe help you to understand when you're saying berating statements to us, that maybe you might want to do a little bit of a rethink that we are actually human. So thanks for joining us today.
One other one, you had talked about the game over at Edison and Dave Zaborniak, a real close personal woman that had done the books and the score at the scores table over at Edison for I couldn't count how many years that she'd been over there, Nancy Otto, and she had just recently passed away earlier this year, and every time we went over there, very pleasant woman to talk to, and she always knew our name. We'd always chat with her, and just a week prior to that, she had lost her husband, who had been fighting some health problems and stuff, and to see people like that. And she had also been elected to go down to Columbus to work the table down there at the finals down in Columbus. And sorry to see people like that go away, because they're real hard to replace.
Yeah, Mrs. Otto was a very special lady.
Like a den mother to all of us, young officials, or our new officials, I should say.
But like I said, I wanted to let everybody know, you know, there's so many guys that we've lost in our, 35 to 40 years, working, that is too many to mention. But I wanted to let everybody know that, we do have connections. We do consider ourselves a brotherhood. And we fight together. Sometimes we're the only other people in the whole gymnasium that are friends and not hated by one side or the other. So anyway,
but remember,
have a good day. Go ahead. You got something else?
But remember, when you have some Italians, they have people that watch over them.
Well,
if you understand where I'm coming from.
Well, that is when if you have a like Father Tony that would actually pray for you, But of course, when I asked him to pray for us down in Mansfield, he said, "I hate effing refs." So, there's no way he was praying over us. So,
Oh, he prayed for his brother.
all right. Well, thanks again for joining us. Don't forget to click the link, buy our book, and we'll see you next time. Until then, stay classy.
Have a great day.